Live to see it, friends, and welcome to The World Transformed. This program is your guide to an astounding future that lies ahead, one that will be here sooner than you think, and one that you have an important role to play in bringing about. The World Transformed, we want to introduce you to what may be the biggest transformation of them all. The one that begins with considering and acting on the almost limitless possibilities that lie ahead, and that ends somewhere beyond the reach of the human imagination. So when does that amazing future begin? Well, today is the day. My name is Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-blogger, co-futurist, and co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Phil, how are you?
Well, I'm super fantastic. How are you, my friend?
Man, doing great, doing great. Another good week, and another good week of great shows we got lined up.
We have got some terrific topics lined up this week, and as a special bonus this week, we are going to be interspersing everything we talk about with a few little teasers from The World Transformed, the Abridged Edition, our book that we've been working on these many months. This past Friday was the official deadline for first drafts of chapters submissions from the 99 authors who were participating in the book with us, and the chapters have started rolling in. And I don't know, Stephen, have you had a chance to take a look at any of that stuff?
Yeah, and I'm impressed so far.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to spoil anything, but you know, we've got some good stuff there, Phil.
We've got some amazing stuff, and we got more to come, because not everyone has submitted their chapter yet. I wouldn't want to point out any individuals by name who haven't, yeah. Stephen, but there's still plenty of time. If you're listening to this and you are one of the authors, go ahead and go ahead and get that in, because we will be, when it's relevant, talking a little bit about these. We're not going to do full-blown treatments of any of these topics, because we want to have the guests on. We want to actually have the authors on and talk to them about these ideas. But there's occasional instances where, hey, that's kind of relevant, so we'll bring it up. But tonight we're talking about, is big the new small, or contrariwise, is small the new big? And Stephen, I got this idea because you gave me so many interesting topics to discuss this week, but I noticed two things in particular caught my attention. One was a story about something very large, and one was a story about something very small. And we've talked about this before. We've talked about the trend towards making things bigger and bigger, and the trends towards making things smaller and smaller. And what's the future really going to be? Are things going to get bigger, or are things going to get smaller?
And you know, there have been times on the show that I've complained that, you know, all the big stuff, you know, it seems like we've done. You know, we had the Apollo program, and
right.
Even the Large Hadron Collider has been operational for a while. I don't know when if ever, we're going to do something that big again, science-wise. So, you know, it seems like all the advances have been in the area of the very small lately, but that's not true. There's big and there's small happening, and so maybe it's time to point it out a little bit.
Yeah, big stuff happening, small stuff happening, and what's our preference, and where are things going to go in the end? Plus, we got another story that talks about small stuff, although it's not really about which of those two factors is going to be the winner. But I just thought it fits so nicely with the overall topic. But the first one, let's talk about small, okay? And we've got an interesting story here: the powerful promise of a puzzling new microscopic combustion engine. And this is really interesting. This is the smallest combustion engine that's ever been built. They don't say internal combustion, so I get the impression that the combustion is actually occurring somewhere outside the engine. But it is a very small motor that works through the combustion of hydrogen and oxygen. It appears, if I read the article correctly, that they're using electrolysis in water to actually break the two component parts out, the oxygen and the hydrogen, and right. Then something interesting happens. I don't know, there's a vast expansion or contraction of the gas, and it allows this very small engine's pistons to turn, or rotor to turn, or whatever it is that moves. Right. But you've got a microscopic motor working off the combustion of oxygen and hydrogen.
That's right. And it's just, you know, what they found was still puzzles them is the loss of pressure. You know, first by expanding and, you know, basically exploding it within this engine, you know, of course it expands, the pressure expands out, but the pressure comes back much faster. I mean, the pressure drops low so much faster than they were expecting, but it's a good thing. So basically, it's sort of like you know, aspirin or the flight of the bumblebee. It works, but we're not exactly sure why. And so so they got something that's pretty awesome here, a microscopic engine, and you know, the people that are working on this have not really come out and said, well, here's what it would be good for. So I thought it might be fun to speculate what this could be used for, Phil. What do you think? What jumps to your mind?
Well, I'll tell you, to me, this speaks to the overall trend for things to be smaller. This is a nice driver for smaller things, and we talk a lot about nanotechnology, but there is a stage before nanotech, which is microtechnology,
Right.
where things are quite small, but not necessarily at the molecularly or atomically precise or molecular precise level yet. That has a lot of applications.
Right.
We could be looking at. I mean, we've talked extensively about sensors, arrays of sensors. You look at what's happening with drones, and you think about the potential for sending out very small drones. Very small machines that carry a camera or that carry a sensor of some kind. That could stick with you and keep track of you, or that could be used. I mean, there's tons of security applications for that kind of machinery. One of the questions always is, well, how do you power these little machines?
Yeah.
The metaphor for these kinds of things is often a swarm, like a swarm of insects. Well, we know how insects are powered. They eat other bugs or nectar or whatever it is the particular species eats, but they metabolize food and that powers them. When we start making small machines on the level of, say, insect size, or even smaller than that, little flea-sized machines that we'll be making in the near future, the question is, what's going to power those? Well, here's one possible answer.
That's right.
This motor could run something like that quite efficiently, it looks to me like, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if this wouldn't be kind of the principle behind a lot of what is ultimately deployed.
And the point is well made that this would not be a nanotech engine.
Right.
This
That's right.
like you said, this is microscopic, but not in the nanotech realm. It's not that small. But hey, microscopic means that you could have potentially something like this powering medical bots inside your bloodstream.
Right.
You could have something like that, and you can imagine a limitless supply of fuel for a little engine like this. I mean, we are made of water by and large, and since this thing is combusting, it's basically this electrolysis process where it's breaking apart water into hydrogen and oxygen, and then you'd have a limitless supply of fuel. It could just swim through your body, doing whatever is necessary and appropriate. So that is cool. I think that it's an exciting possibility that I would guess is still 10 years away, but it's that's a pretty neat thing.
And I would suggest another possible application, to swing it back to nanotech just for a minute. We talked about K. Eric Drexler's book, Radical Abundance, a while back. And in that, he talks about the kind of infrastructure that you'll have to have in place in order to achieve atomically precise manufacturing. And the kind of drawn out description that he provides in one of the chapters of an atomically precise factory is actually one where things are assembled first at the molecular level, then they're handed off to one
Right.
iteration up from that, then one
Well,
iteration up from that, then one up from that, until finally you've got these big macro level parts of the sort that we're used to seeing in any
so
normal
you're saying
factory
this is the infrastructure that might help build the nanotech infrastructure
This is one of
eventually?
the stages. Maybe not the
Yeah.
second stage up from molecular, maybe three stages up from molecular, but it's somewhere in that pipeline, I would suggest.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've got a motor operating that small means you can power some really small little machines, which could possibly even make smaller machines that, to use Feynman's original, there's plenty of room at the bottom, to build even smaller machines, and then ultimately you get down to the molecular level. So although this is not nanotechnology, I wouldn't discount this as a potential enabling technology for what we'll ultimately see in the way of nanotech.
Yep. And this again was in the technology review, and the link will be provided, right, Phil?
The
So,
link is in the show notes at Blog Talk Radio and also at worldtransform.com. So check it out.
awesome, man.
All right, so that's small. Let's talk big. Stephen, what do you got?
Okay. So, how long has it been, Phil, since the last Saturn V was fired? Speaking of Apollo, we mentioned Apollo.
I'm going to say that probably the last one was fired in the mid 70s, 1974, 1975,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
What was it? Skylab was the
Would have been Skylab or maybe the Apollo Soyuz kind of joint publicity
mission.
mission that we did with the Russians. It was certainly not a moon mission.
Yeah,
The last time one was launched, unless you
74,
believe
70.
Apollo 18, and I don't think that movie's true.
No, no, that's I don't even suggest that as a as a good night at the movies.
No,
That was a bad movie.
because it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 74, 75, something like that. I ought to know better, but exactly what that was. But it's been a long time since.
Yeah, call it 40 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, since the world has seen a truly big rocket like that, something that could take a cargo beyond low Earth orbit, is what we're talking about. Well, Elon Musk of SpaceX has announced that they're going to launch the Falcon Heavy on its first test flight, hopefully later this year. Now, the Falcon Heavy is a truly big rocket engine. It's not quite as big as Saturn V, but I get the feeling it's pretty darn close to the size and power of the Saturn V. They say it's the equivalent. The liftoff thrust is the equivalent of 15 Boeing 747s tied together.
Wow.
And could actually take, if you could manage to get a 737, a slightly smaller passenger jet, if you could somehow attach it, it could put a 737 complete with luggage, fuel, and a full load of passengers. It could put that in low Earth orbit.
That is a strong enough
big.
rocket to.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? Probably 150 people. I don't know how many people fit on a 737, but 100 anyway.
Yeah, maybe 200, but it's
somewhere
it's
in
a
there.
lot of weight.
That's a lot of people. I mean, then what would you do? It's like, well, we got 200 people in space now. Now what?
Guess what? We've just doubled the amount of people that have ever been in space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So
All that to say, it's a lot of thrust. This is a big
That's a
rocket.
lot of thrust. They're not going to use this to do that.
Right.
But it's just an example of how much thrust is provided. So what do you do with something like that? Well, you could use something like that to return to the moon. You could use that to put a huge payload in low Earth orbit, or you could take something small all the way to Mars. That's right. This thing would go to Mars. It's it's got that much thrust. And so is it a one-way ticket to Mars? I think that maybe it might be. So you would want to have it fixed to where it could you might take another one with you, I guess, or something like that. So it's a very powerful rocket engine, and that's exciting. That's big tech there, and we haven't seen its like in a while. And it's time to start dreaming big in space again. And I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see it blast off.
Well, the question for a long time has been: is there any future for big rockets?
Right.
Because after the Saturn V and the Russians, I'm sorry, had a large payload capable rocket too, the Korabel or something. I think actually the Korabel is what they're still using to bring people up to the space station. But there were these back in the 60s and 70s. There were these big stonking rockets, these big powerful rockets, and Wernher von Braun, the genius behind the U.S. space program, was an advocate of very large rockets. If you've ever read accounts of how the space program came into being, the Saturn V was very much a compromise as far as he was concerned because of all the stages and all that kind of thing. He wanted to build just one big rocket that just boom straight to the moon. And I think if you wanted to get to Mars, you would have just said, okay, bigger rocket, 1,500 feet tall, right? It'll get you. It will get you to Mars. So the question has always been, well, is that the right approach? Do you need a big rocket, or do you need just enough thrust to get you into low Earth orbit, and then up there you build infrastructure, and from low Earth orbit, which I think it was Robert A. Heinlein who says is halfway to anywhere. Yeah. Then you launch another rocket from there because you don't need all that much thrust once you're up there. Once you've achieved escape velocity on Earth, it's a lot easier to get to Mars, and you don't really need as much thrust or to get to anywhere, to get to the moon or anywhere else that you want to go. Well, we haven't really gone anywhere lately. I mean, we've sent unmanned probes to the planets, and we've done really impressive things along those lines. I presume with much smaller thrust, right? Actually, much smaller rockets, because those, there's no people, there's no life support, none of those kinds of components when they launch those kinds of rockets. So the question has been, what's the future in space? big rockets or small rockets, and we were leaning very much in a small rockets kind of a direction. But
Right.
SpaceX comes along now and says, no, 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 we're we're going back in the big direction because you know what? You can push a lot of stuff into space that way. You can get a lot of thrust, and you can send a much bigger rocket to Mars with a big rocket. And it'll be interesting to see. First, it'll be interesting to see this thing in action, and second, it will be interesting to see what the next generation after this of private spacecraft looks like. And will we be seeing still bigger and bigger ships, still bigger and bigger rockets? Will it stabilize at this level? I'd like to think we're at the golden age of seeing really huge rockets being launched either from Earth or even up in low Earth orbit. Either way, it's a pretty cool idea, isn't it?
It is. I think the idea is, what you're talking about, taking something to low Earth orbit and then launching from there is the way to go with something like a Mars mission. I think you might have a couple of heavies, pushing a third unfired heavy into low Earth orbit, and putting two or three of those together, and then launching, and then with the ability to maneuver and bring your crew back home. Something like that, I might be the right way to do a Mars mission. So that's exciting. I'm glad they're doing it. Elon Musk, of course, is on record, Phil, saying that he wants to retire to Mars,
Right.
and a lot of people have acted like he said it in jest. I think he's serious. I think he really wants to make the trip to Mars himself. Maybe a one-way trip towards the end of his life, and be actually buried on Mars, kind of thing. It's an exciting dream, and that's the thing about Elon Musk is that the silly things that he tends to say tend to come true too, don't they? I mean, he's the Tesla guy. He's the he dreams big, and he tends to make them happen. So
He's doing some cool stuff with his life.
yeah,
Let's put it that way.
that's
He
right.
absolutely is. Well, and I've heard him when really pushed on that point, whether he really believes he's going to go to Mars or not. He says, you know what? It doesn't matter if I go. The important thing is we're creating the capability, and it is going to happen. And
Yeah,
I think that's an important statement to make
right.
because then it doesn't become this thing where if he never goes to Mars,
Mankind,
somehow he's
yeah,
discredited, right?
yeah, that's right. If he puts mankind on Mars,
Yeah.
that's the real thing. And
Absolutely,
so
absolutely,
and
and how cool that a big rocket might get us there. And Stephen, this kind of speaks to something else, which is that the trend towards small or the trend towards big never seems to last forever. And we've talked about this actually before with computer devices. We talked about how the smartphones got smaller and smaller and smaller, but now people are kind of more interested in larger interfaces, and they started getting bigger again.
yeah,
And we talk about Minority Report, where the computer interface is this huge thing, and you're kind of using your whole body
yeah,
to interact with it. You've got gaming systems that allow you to use the whole space that you can occupy. So things tend to get smaller for a while, then they get bigger for a while, and there's a lot of interplay between the two as
right.
well. We were just talking about enabling technology for enabling infrastructure for nanotechnology. Well, nanotechnology is one of the things that would allow for truly large spacecraft. One of the things that Drexler talked about in his book is that he first got interested in nanotechnology because he was trying to account for how you could ever build a really big sail. And the way you
Yeah,
could do it is through atomically precise manufacturing. And ultimately, when we see really large spacecraft going between the planets, if we are to see that in the future, it will be because they're atomically precise. It'll be because they've been manufactured to atomic specification using nanotechnology. So we'll get the big probably through the small.
oh
That
yeah, yeah. It's and list off all the enabling technologies that'll allow us to become a multi-planet species. I mean, it's going to be obviously uh, computers, which require us to do more and more with smaller and smaller spaces in order to have faster and more powerful computers. And that's an obvious one. But I mean, then there's things like 3D printing, absolutely essential, I believe, for being able to on the fly manufacture in your in your spaceship, the thing you need because home is a long way away,
that's right.
and so that's an enabling technology. I think biotech is going to be huge, a huge enabler, because we need to be able to engineer the types of plants that are needed to, number one, provide food on the spaceship and oxygen on the spaceship, and we'll talk about this later this week, potentially even electricity. That's kind of exciting. And then, and then once you get to like Mars, you're going to need to have something, if you're going to begin growing things on the surface of Mars, and obviously inside of a dome, obviously, you're gonna need to have something that could handle the Martian lack of soil. It's it's just sand basically. It's lifeless. So you'd start with microbes and then work something up there, but that requires biotech. And so that's
technology of the very small, absolutely.
Of the very small, allowing us to do very big things.
Very big projects like, say, terraforming Mars, those kinds, those kinds of big projects. Well, and this is what we see. I think our perspective is shifting in both directions simultaneously. That is to say that we're becoming more and more aware of the small, and the small is becoming more relevant to us. But at the same time, our universe is getting bigger and bigger. And one of the stories, Stephen, that you sent me to look at this week, and it only occurred to me right before the show tonight that this is relevant, was this headline: NASA hits jackpot with the discovery of 715 new exoplanets.
That's right.
Our universe is just getting bigger all the time. It's not, getting spatially bigger, because we have a good notion of exactly how large the universe is, but it's getting more full of planets, and the number of planets is getting larger.
The number of known exoplanets before that announcement, late last month, was 900 and something exoplanets. They added another 700 and something to that, so they almost doubled, the number of known exoplanets. That's amazing. That's that they're able to do that, and there's a number of those planets. Not a big number, but it's like maybe a dozen, half dozen, something like that, are small rocky worlds that are in their star's habitable zone, and so they're the scientists are excited about that. It's like you say, big universe.
It's a big universe. I mean, I remember when there weren't any exoplanets. Everybody bemoans the loss of Pluto as a planet, but we've picked up 1,600 planets. So I really can't complain, because especially since Pluto is still there. And
yeah, that's right. We didn't lose Pluto.
I don't know if you've been watching Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, it's an awesome show. Gotta recommend it. Anyone who enjoys what you and I do, Phil, would love Cosmos. They have a slightly larger budget, but
their effects are their visual effects are a little better than ours. But
yeah.
but I observed that Tyson, when he talked about the 8 planets, and then gave a shout out to Pluto anyhow.
Yeah, and
not describing it as a planet, but it still got mentioned.
Right.
So
yeah, he did a shout out, and that's only fair, since he was part of the group that demoted it. So
exactly. That's right. So our perspective gets bigger, and at the same time it gets smaller. We start we start seeing smaller and smaller. Here's the $1 Origami Microscope, a low-cost microscope made from folded paper and a cheap lens. It says here could revolutionize education and healthcare in the developing world. What an amazing piece of technology this is. You can take a piece of paper, fold it just right, and I guess the lenses are made of plastic.
Yes, and they're actually they're actually printed in, or it's sort of I get the feeling that it's almost a 3D printed kind of process to make it, for at least the lenses, because they're already embedded in the paper. So when you do your folding, it's already there, and it's not like you fold it into a microscope that looks like a old-fashioned microscope. This is still flat. It's kind of interesting. It's still a flat, a piece of paper that's been folded, but you have the ability to zoom in, zoom out, focus in, and you can find all sorts of bacteria, things like that. It's extremely important for the developing world. If you can identify the various bacteria that cause things like dysentery, malaria, things like that, and do it on the cheap like this, where you can just, there are places in the world that getting equipment out to it is tough to do, and then you always have to worry about your equipment breaking, things like that. Stuff like this, I mean, it's disposable basically. Oh man, wow, that's malaria. Well, I'm getting rid of this. I don't want malaria in my lab.
Right.
But this person has it, and so you could actually it makes that technology disposable, and therefore you can keep a cleaner lab that way. It's
well, they don't mention malaria in the article, and I wonder if that's because as a virus it might be outside of the range of this microscope, because they do mention.
They mentioned he did mention malaria in his TED talk.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
fair enough.
they can.
So this can see really small stuff. I mean, that's
yeah,
that's amazing, because they do talk about all these little protozoa type organisms that you can take a drop of water and look at it and go, yuck, there it is. Let's not drink this water, and those kinds of things. But yeah, if you can spot malaria, that's 3/4 of the way to keeping people from getting it. And
that's right.
That's hugely important. You're bringing a level of visibility to the world, that's important from an educational standpoint, but really important from a public health standpoint for a lot of people who can make practical use of this on a day-to-day basis. And that's really exciting that kind of capability, that kind of technology gets put into people's hands.
And he was talking about in the TED talk, not just getting this into doctors' hands. This is so cheap. You can put it in the hands of school children around the world.
Right.
And just them being able to put this in the hands of some school children that here's look under there. Here's what you see, and they see these little bugs. It gets their imagination turning. It might help bring out some of those smart kids from all over the world, including the developing world, make doctors out of them. That's it's an exciting thing. It was kind of neat. He folded it up, and inside, while he was doing his TED talk, he folds this thing into place and shows a few slides that on the screen behind him, and that was very neat. Then he throws it on the ground and stomps it about 4 times, picks it up and does it again.
Oh wow!
So that's part of it. It's robust. It's
right.
And so that's
amazing technology. Everybody, follow the links. Check out the TED Talk. That's definitely worth your while. So there you have it, Stephen. The big or the small. I think we're going to be looking more at each of them. I think they're both going to be increasingly important. They're going to be important to each other. I think we need the small to get the big, and I think at some point we're going to need the big to get to the small. And I will give one title from the World Transformed, the abridged edition. There is a chapter called How to Build a Planet Using Nanotechnology. So there you go. That's as big and as small as you can get at the same time. Stephen, what's our music?
Our music tonight is My Paradise by This.
This?
This.
With My Paradise. Thank you, Stephen, for putting that together. Thank you all for being with us. We'll be back on Wednesday with an all-new show. We look forward to talking with you then. And until next time, live to see it.
6:30 a.m. The alarm is ringing, my mood is bad. I get out of my bed and I start dreaming of a different life. No more waiting, I'll take the chance to play it my my paradise. Oh yeah. Ooh, I need to find my paradise. And with no war as an all I give my